Flashing blue and red lights cut through the darkness, a symbol of safety, of help arriving. But what if, when you desperately needed that help, it was denied? Imagine pouring out your fear, your trauma, begging for someone to listen, only to be met with a shrug, a wave of the hand, a complete and utter dismissal. This woman knows that feeling all too well. She was a victim, assaulted and vulnerable, and she did exactly what we are all told to do. She went to the police, but the officer she encountered didn't see a victim. He saw a stereotype. He didn't hear a cry for help. He heard an inconvenience. He brushed her aside, ignored her pleas, and sent her away feeling even more violated and alone. He thought he was in control, in charge. He thought he could dismiss her without consequence. He was devastatingly wrong, because the woman he chose to ignore, the woman he so casually disrespected, was not just any citizen. She was the district attorney, and he was about to learn, in the most brutal way possible, that some people are not to be underestimated. Get ready for a story of shocking indifference, instant regret, and the powerful moment justice finally arrived. Maya Johnson was a pillar of her community, a respected lawyer known for her sharp intellect and unwavering commitment to justice. She was someone people turned to for help, for guidance, for strength. But on this particular evening, Maya found herself in a role she was far less accustomed to. Victim, walking home after a late community event, the kind she often organized and championed, her evening took a terrifying turn. Out of the shadows, a figure emerged. Before she could react, she was violently shoved to the ground. A man loomed over her, demanding her purse, his voice rough and menacing. Fear surged through her, but instinct and years of inner strength kicked in. Maya fought back, resisting her attacker with every ounce of courage she possessed. Thankfully, her resistance startled him. He faltered, then abruptly turned and fled, disappearing back into the darkness, leaving Maya shaken, bruised, but unbroken. Despite the fear and adrenaline coursing through her, Maya's mind remained clear. She knew what she had to do. She believed in the rule of law, in the importance of reporting crime, in the promise of protection that the police were meant to represent. Gathering herself, she made her way directly to the local police precinct. She walked through the brightly lit doors, her heart still racing, her body still trembling, but her resolve firm. She was there to report a crime, to seek justice, and to trust in the system she had dedicated her career to upholding. Little did she know that trust was about to be tested in ways she could never have imagined. Behind the raised counter of the precinct's reception area sat Officer Kevin Davis. He was a veteran of the force, his uniform slightly rumpled, his face etched with the weariness of countless late shifts and routine paperwork. Officer Davis had seen it all, or so he thought. Years on the job had hardened him, fostering a cynical outlook and a tendency to categorize people and situations with rapid, often biased judgment. He was, to put it bluntly, a man who operated on assumptions, and those assumptions often fell along predictable lines of race and class. When Maya approached the desk, her distress was palpable. Her breathing was shallow, her hands trembled slightly, and her voice wavered as she spoke, but she maintained a determined clarity in her words. "Officer," she began, stepping up to the counter, "I need to report an assault. I was attacked just a few blocks from here." Officer Davis barely looked up. He was shuffling through a stack of papers, his attention seemingly fixed on the forms in front of him. "Assault, huh?" he mumbled, his tone suggesting it was more of a bureaucratic formality than a matter of genuine concern. "Let's take a report." The words were perfunctory, devoid of any empathy or urgency. Maya pressed on, trying to convey the seriousness of what had happened. "Yes," she explained, her voice trembling slightly but remaining firm. "A man came up behind me, pushed me to the ground, and tried to steal my purse. I fought back. Thankfully, he ran off. But I'm shaken up and I want to file a report." This time, Officer Davis did lift his head, but only to give Maya a cursory, dismissive glance. His eyes flickered over her appearance, taking in her well-dressed attire and her race, before settling back down on his paperwork. A subtle, almost imperceptible smirk played at the corner of his lips. "Purse snatching, huh?" he repeated, his voice now laced with thinly veiled disbelief, as if questioning the very validity of her claim. "Late at night, walking alone? You know, ma'am, You gotta be more careful. These things happen." He punctuated his statement with a shrug, as if to imply that she was somehow responsible for her own victimization, that it was simply an unavoidable part of life, especially for someone like her, out alone at night. His words, casual and dismissive, began to chip away at Maya's initial hope for help, replacing it with a cold, sinking feeling of being utterly unheard and profoundly misunderstood. Instead of offering reassurance or initiating the report-taking process, Officer Davis doubled down on his dismissive attitude. Maya, still reeling from the assault and now faced with this wall of indifference, felt a surge of frustration battling with her initial shock. She tried to assert herself, to make him understand the seriousness of what had occurred. "Officer," Maya insisted, her voice gaining a sharper edge. "This was not just things happen. I was physically attacked. I want to file a formal report. I can give you a description of the man." She was trying to be proactive, to provide him with information that could be useful, to push past his wall of apathy. Officer Davis finally ceased shuffling papers, but only to wave a dismissive hand in her direction, his gaze still avoiding direct eye contact. "Look," he sighed, the sound heavy with feigned weariness. "We get these reports all the time. Purse snatchings, petty theft, probably just some kid looking for quick cash." He minimized the perpetrator, reducing a violent assault to a trivial act of juvenile delinquency. "We'll put it in the system," he conceded, as if doing her a huge favor. "But honestly, chances of finding him are slim to none. It's a waste of resources, you know?" His words were not just dismissive, they were actively discouraging, implying that her experience was insignificant, a drain on police resources, and ultimately not worth pursuing. Maya's frustration mounted. "But isn't it your job to investigate?" she challenged, her voice rising slightly, fueled by a growing sense of injustice. "To try and find him? What if he does this to someone else? Shouldn't you at least try to prevent that?" Officer Davis let out a long, drawn-out sigh, a theatrical display of exasperation designed to make Maya feel unreasonable, demanding, and overly emotional. He leaned back in his chair, finally making fleeting eye contact, his expression conveying a mix of condescension and thinly veiled annoyance. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dripping with patronizing patience, as if explaining something incredibly simple to a child. "We have real crimes to deal with here. Homicides, robberies, serious assaults." He gestured vaguely around the precinct, implying that her situation paled in comparison to the real police work he should be focusing on. "You weren't seriously hurt," he continued, minimizing her trauma and emotional distress. "You got your purse back. Be thankful for that, learn your lesson, and move on. Filing a report is just going to be paperwork for nothing. Trust me, it's not worth the hassle for either of us." His gaslighting was blatant. He was not only dismissing her experience, but actively trying to convince her that her desire for justice was unreasonable, that her trauma was insignificant, and that the entire system was stacked against her. Maya was no longer just facing an indifferent officer. She was confronting a systemic wall of apathy, a deep-seated bias that devalued her experience and effectively silenced her voice before she could even begin to seek justice. The weight of this realization settled heavily upon her, a chilling confirmation of the very inequalities she fought against every day in her professional life. Despite the officer's barrage of dismissive remarks and victim blaming, Maya's outward composure remained remarkably intact. Years of navigating adversarial courtrooms and high-stakes legal battles had instilled in her an inner steel, a capacity to maintain control even in the face of blatant disrespect and injustice. While Officer Davis clearly underestimated her, Maya understood precisely the kind of systemic bias she was encountering. Arguing further with him would be futile. He was too entrenched in his prejudiced assumptions to be swayed by reason or pleas. It was time for a different tactic, a decisive shift in the power dynamic he so readily assumed he controlled. With a slow, deliberate movement, Maya reached into her handbag. Officer Davis, still leaning back in his chair, stifling a yawn and expecting her to simply give up and leave, barely registered her action. From her bag, Maya withdrew a slim, official-looking leather case. She opened it with a quiet snap, revealing a gleaming badge and a formal identification card. She placed the open case deliberately on the counter, sliding it slowly towards Officer Davis. the movement precise and purposeful. "Officer Davis," Maya said, her voice now calm, steady, and imbued with an unmistakable undercurrent of authority. "I understand you're busy, but I need to be clear about something." She paused, letting her words hang in the air, her gaze unwavering, locking directly onto Officer Davis for the first time that evening. "This is not just paperwork. This is a serious incident, and I expect it to be treated as such." Another deliberate pause, allowing the weight of her next words to fully sink in. "And for the record," she stated, each word measured and precise, "I am the district attorney for this county." The effect was instantaneous, like a switch being flipped. Officer Davis's dismissive smirk vanished as if it had never existed, replaced by a look of utter, jaw-dropping shock. His casual slouch in the chair evaporated, his spine snapping ramrod straight. The bored, cynical expression that had been etched on his face melted away, revealing the raw, unfiltered panic beneath. His eyes darted down to the badge and ID case on the counter, then snapped back up to Maya's face, his gaze flickering between the two, desperately trying to process the impossible reality unfolding before him. The color drained from Officer Davis's face, leaving him ashen. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He was frozen, caught in the headlights of his own monumental blunder, the full horrifying weight of his misjudgment crashing down upon him. He had just dismissed, belittled, and gaslighted the highest law enforcement official in the entire county. A woman who now held significant power over his career, his precinct, and potentially his entire future. The casual indifference, the prejudiced assumptions, the blatant disrespect. It all hung in the air, now starkly illuminated by the cold, hard reality of Maya Johnson's true identity. His world, in that single devastating moment of revelation, had irrevocably shifted. Officer Davis's carefully constructed facade of cynicism and indifference shattered into a million pieces. Panic seized him, twisting his features into a mask of raw terror. The stammering apologies began to erupt from him, tumbling over each other in a desperate attempt to damage control. "District Attorney Johnson," he stammered, his voice cracking, barely above a whisper. I am so sorry. I had no idea. Please believe me. Of course, we will take your report seriously. Right away. This is terrible. I can get a detective right now. Anything you need, District Attorney, anything at all." His sudden shift from dismissive indifference to obsequious eagerness was both pathetic and transparent. Maya watched him, her expression remaining calm and controlled, betraying none of the anger she undoubtedly felt. She allowed his panicked fluster to play out for a moment, then cut through his desperate rambling with a voice that was firm, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion. "Detective will not be necessary tonight, Officer Davis," Maya stated, her words crisp and precise, each syllable landing with the weight of her authority. "What is necessary is a formal complaint regarding your conduct." She paused, letting the weight of her statement sink in. "Your dismissive attitude, your blatant refusal to take my report seriously, and your profound disrespect for a victim of crime are completely unacceptable, especially from an officer of this precinct." With a subtle shift of her gaze, Maya indicated a uniformed sergeant who had approached the reception desk. Drawn by the sudden shift in atmosphere and Officer Davis's increasingly agitated state, the sergeant, recognizing Maya and sensing the gravity of the situation, stood ramrod straight, his expression now a mixture of concern and apprehension. "Sergeant," Maya addressed the senior officer directly, her voice carrying across the now silent reception area. "I need to file a formal complaint against Officer Davis immediately." She turned her gaze back to the ashen-faced Officer Davis, her eyes locking onto his with unwavering intensity. "I expect a full and thorough investigation into his conduct this evening." The sergeant nodded sharply, his demeanor instantly professional and serious. "Yes, District Attorney Johnson, absolutely, right away." He turned to Officer Davis, his own expression now hardening into a stern disapproval. Officer Davis stood frozen, his face pale and slick with a sheen of nervous sweat, watching as his career trajectory visibly and audibly derailed in front of everyone present. The casual chatter of the precinct had ceased. Other officers, initially curious, now stood back, observing the scene with a mixture of shock, apprehension, and a dawning understanding of the severe consequences about to befall their colleague. As the sergeant began to formally take Maya's complaint, ushering her to a separate area with a demeanor of utmost deference and seriousness, Officer Davis remained rooted to the spot behind the reception desk, a picture of utter defeat. The precinct, just moments before a place of routine and dismissiveness, had been transformed into a stark stage of accountability, the spotlight of justice now firmly fixed upon Officer Kevin Davis and his deeply flawed actions. Maya Johnson's pursuit of justice didn't end with a formal complaint against Officer Davis. For her, the dismissive treatment she received at the precinct was not just a personal affront. It was a stark symptom of a deeper, systemic problem within the law enforcement system itself. She recognized that Officer Davis's prejudice and indifference were not isolated incidents, but rather reflections of ingrained biases and procedural shortcomings that needed to be addressed at a fundamental level. Determined to leverage her position as district attorney to enact meaningful change, Maya embarked on a path of systemic reform that would ripple throughout the police department and the wider community. News of the incident at the precinct spread rapidly, fueled by both official channels and word of mouth, igniting a firestorm of public debate and demand for accountability. Community groups, civil rights organizations, and concerned citizens rallied behind Maya, amplifying her call for systemic change. She seized this moment, using her platform to initiate a comprehensive review of police department policies and procedures, specifically focusing on how assault reports, particularly those involving victims from marginalized communities, were handled. Maya convened town hall meetings, engaging in open dialogues with community members, activists, and police leadership. She listened intently to the stories of others who had felt dismissed, ignored, or mistreated by law enforcement, recognizing the shared experiences that underscored the need for widespread reform. Drawing on these accounts and expert analysis, she spearheaded the implementation of mandatory implicit bias training for every officer in the police department. This training went beyond superficial awareness, delving into the complexities of unconscious prejudice, victim empathy, and the critical importance of treating every crime report with equal seriousness and respect, regardless of the victim's background or perceived social standing. Furthermore, Maya championed the creation of an independent citizens review board designed to provide crucial oversight of police conduct and ensure greater transparency and accountability. This board, composed of diverse community representatives, was empowered to investigate complaints of police misconduct, review departmental policies, and make recommendations for improvement, fostering a stronger bridge of trust between law enforcement and the community they served. Through these multifaceted initiatives, Maya Johnson transformed her personal experience of injustice into a powerful force for systemic betterment, working to dismantle the very biases that had initially silenced her and paving the way for a more equitable and just law enforcement system for all. Officer Davis's dismissive actions, born from prejudice and apathy, not only failed a victim of crime in her moment of need, but also exposed deep cracks within the foundation of the police department itself. Maya Johnson's courageous response, fueled by her own sense of justice and her unwavering commitment to her community, transformed a personal act of disrespect into a powerful catalyst for systemic reform. She demonstrated that even in the face of ingrained bias and institutional indifference, one voice armed with truth and a demand for accountability can spark meaningful and lasting change. This story serves as a potent reminder that bias can manifest in unexpected and harmful ways, even within the very systems designed to protect and serve. It underscores the critical importance of challenging dismissiveness, speaking truth to power, and refusing to be silenced in the face of injustice. But ultimately, Maya's experience is a testament to empowerment. It highlights the transformative potential of demanding accountability, not just for individual failings, but for systemic flaws. And it powerfully reaffirms that true strength lies not in ignoring or dismissing the vulnerable, but in amplifying their voices, believing their experiences, and relentlessly pursuing justice for all. Have you ever felt unheard or dismissed when seeking help or reporting injustice? Share your experiences and reflections in the comments below. Let's continue to build a world where everyone is treated with respect, where voices are valued and where justice is not just a concept, but a lived reality for all members of our community. And if you believe in the power of stories that inspire change and empower us to act, remember to subscribe for more content like this.